Excuse me a second, I'm just going to go to the bathroom. Hanging on the wall in the bathroom of 42 Pearson Park were 3 pictures that we know of. The first one is a print of Blake's reunion of Body and Soul. Then we have, there we are, a punch-like sketch of a pantomime horse with the legs pulling in opposite directions and the caption, "Ah, at last I've found you." That's my sketch, actually. If anyone wants to purchase it from me, they're very welcome. And then a photograph of Larkin and Ted Hughes. Larkin sent a print of this to Charles Monteith, his editor at Faber, saying, "I can't resist sending you a copy of Ted reading at the university here, with me in the chair. Quite without disrespect to either of us, it seems to me terribly funny." However, Faber authors must stick together. As a quick aside, this is my own copy of this photograph. It's also over there, actually, with the Larkinalia. And I bought it at an auction, and it came with this envelope. Can you read that? Would you like to see what's inside? So we have blades, prunes, cheddar, mushrooms, W-cress, half tomatoes, spring onions, asparagus, vegetables, strawberries, splash, chuck gum. With all those crossings out, it reminded me of something that Claire showed us earlier. So this is from the Helpful People Whole History Centre. And so if we go back to the list, if you now read it by omitting the crossed out items, I'll let you do that in your own minds, I think you'll see this is one of the last unpublished works by Larkin. But anyway, let's get back to the bathroom. So, yeah, we have 3 opposites, soul and body, a pantomime horse, and 2 writers sticking together. All 3 are double acts. They're all 4-legged creatures, and we know that Larkin loved 4-legged creatures. We saw Guy the gorilla earlier. And pairs that are completed by their opposite. Like 2 parts of a whole, 2 sides of a coin. Larkin has basically built a shrine to opposites in the depths of his flat. So what happens after morning worship at the shrine? We perhaps get a glimpse in the poem Sad Steps when the speaker, groping back to bed after a piss, stares out through high windows, hoping to find inspiration from the moon. I'm glad we brought piss into it, actually, because we were talking about it earlier. The speaker, like any creature, is struck dumb by looking directly at the moon's stone-coloured light, the hardness and the brightness and the plain, far-reaching singleness of that wide stare. Like those opposites in the bathroom, there's a complementary partner to Sad Steps sat right next to it. If Sad Steps features the moon, Solar is an ode to the sun. How still you stand, says the speaker. Its light stuns us into awed silence. The eye sees you, simplified by distance, into an origin. But there's another partner to Sad Steps in the volume, and that's the title poem. In Sad Steps, the speaker stares at the sky, feels life passing him by, and then becomes preoccupied with the thought of a couple of lovers. In High Windows, we have the reverse. The speaker spots a young couple, then feels that life is passing him by, then gazes out at the sky. In both poems, staring towards a pure light in the heavens casts a soothing blankness in the mind. As High Windows puts it, this is a light that shows nothing and is nowhere and is endless. A place beyond opposites, where all differences disappear, pure light where all colours of the spectrum become one. Staring into this pure, clear light creates a silence, a feeling of erased comprehension. We see it often in the volume High Windows. Look at the old fools. Perhaps being old is having lighted rooms inside your head and people in them acting, people you know yet can't quite name. They are struck dumb by that light. There's also the lucent comb of the building, the hospital where we are all of us dumbfounded in the face of death. Larkin's first collection, never published, was entitled In the Grip of Light. As Larkin said, this summed up the predicament of what it is to be human. Yet high windows could also be called this. Time and again, as the speaker works towards a conclusion, his mind veers off to bathe in the consoling oblivion of pure light. The soothing blankness of staring at it, where there is nothing to be said, is juxtaposed with the confusing visual noise of details picked out by that light. The moonlight in Sad Steps transfixes, but when that light hits the earth and highlights details of our own world, the speaker's mind starts racing. The roofs sharpen below his gaze and he starts gibbering lunacy, lozenge of love, medallion of art. But as soon as you turn your gaze away from consoling oblivion, you see a myriad of details. Words immediately rush in to try and describe them. It's the million-petaled flower of being here, leaving us hog-spewing sentences trying to explain it all. Look at that phrase in the poem Friday Night in the Royal Station Hotel. Light spreads darkly downwards. When it illuminates, light creates not comprehension, but its opposite. When a creature looks down into the quotidian mess of life, the details are bewildering. It's hard to pick anything out in all that colour. Look at the shades in the volume High Windows. It opens with a red bathing cap, yellow sand, white steamer, or there's a grey day, black-faced sheep, brown eggs, white eggs, amongst the bustle of Show Saturday. Too many colours confuse and jar. Better to stick with just one. As the dapper Larkin said to Monica, you can't clash reds. Otherwise, things quickly become bewildering. Or look at the drunken conversation at high table in Livings, which descends into riddles that make little sense to the reader. Why is Judas like Jack Ketch? If the reader doesn't know, it feels like the dons don't either. The candlelight narrows as if straining hard to think of the answer, then broadens again. Give up. In the same poem, we see the befuddling, dusty shelves that hold prayers and proofs, while above them is the longed-for clarity of the Chaldean constellations of the immense sky. Incidentally, there's a Jordan nearby for these old fools to piss into. As with the poem Sad Steps, pissing seems to have something to do with incomprehension, like von Hogspew in the poem The Card Players, pissing outside at the dark. From pissing in the dark to the peace that patteth all understanding. I practiced that line. I didn't get it quite right. In the introduction to All What Jazz, Larkin describes such a vivid epiphany. When the young poet and his friends put on trad jazz records in the past, they instantly understood and were made wordless by the mastery. It sounds very much like gazing into that pure white light. But now, Larkin complains, to understand or comment on a musician like Coltrane, you have to study the critics, spend money on books, and read lots of exposition to comprehend. Larkin says, perhaps I was mistaken in thinking that jazz had died. What it had done was split into two, intelligence without beat and beat without intelligence. In the intro to All What Jazz, Larkin also mentions the critic Brian Rust, who wrote about playing Charlie Parker to his baby, which made it cry. The baby is growing up, beginning to divide the pure white light of primal existence into all the different colours of being here. It's enough to make anyone weep. To Larkin, this ever-growing complexity ushers in a contrick. Critics are jumping on the bandwagon. He imagines one saying, you've got to work at this. After all, you don't expect to understand anything as important as art straight off, do you? I mean, it's pretty complex stuff. If you want to know how complex, I'm giving a course of 96 lectures at the local college starting next week, and you'll be more than welcome. You have to learn about modern jazz, and what drives this quest for knowledge is to keep the suckers spending, Larkin says. Which leads us back to High Windows and the poem Money. Here, the speaker isn't complaining that he doesn't have enough of the stuff, which would be my gripe and somebody's normal grumble, but he's complaining that he has to spend it. Life is so much more than that, but we are debasing ourselves when we measure out our lives in pounds, shillings and pence. The speaker feels solid in having anything to do with it. I listen to money singing. It's like looking down from long French windows at a provincial town, the slums, the canal, the churches ornate and mad in the evening sun. It is intensely sad. As we've already seen, spending a penny is a sad business. Those windows again, of course. Money is forcing the speaker's eyes down to the minutiae of the town rather than up to the sky. This is what it's like to be a hoarder. Larkin says as a child he used to scour the ground looking for famous cricketers' cigarette cards. The urge to acquire and collect makes fools of us all. Rather than looking up into the wonder of pure light, we're looking down into the gutter. In the poem, the speaker wants to lift up his eyes, to move to the primal place of pure light, with no gradation, no spectrum, just being, the place where the opposites join to create a whole. In that introduction to All What Jazz, Larkin writes that art springs from two opposing forces, the tension between the artist and his material, and between the artist and his audience. Get the balance right, and you have art. Get it wrong, and you have modernism. He goes on, in the last 75 years or so, the second of these has slackened or even perished. In consequence, the artist has become over-concerned with his material. Piqued at being neglected, he has painted portraits with both eyes on the same side of the nose. Perhaps that's what those conjoined opposites in the bathroom are about, that balancing trick of the artist, creating something beyond light and shade, peace and confusion, authenticity and a contrick, a place where opposites come together to create the infinite. As Larkin writes in a letter about the poem High Windows, one longs for infinity and absence, the beauty of somewhere you're not. It shows humanity as a series of oppressions, and one wants to be somewhere where there's neither oppressed nor oppressor, just freedom. As we read in Once from the Less Deceived, beneath it all, the desire for oblivion runs. To be human is to cut the infinite up into the minutiae of perception, to divide pure light into its constituent colours. And to be human is also to yearn to move beyond that, to disappear and dissolve into oblivion. After High Windows, Larkin took active and perhaps sad steps towards that oblivion. Just as he stopped writing a diary, described in the poem Forget What Did, when the speaker escapes from cicatrizing his existence into words, Larkin also stopped writing poems. The poet disappears. There may even be a parallel movement in Larkin's photography. As Richard Bradford mentions in his collection of Larkin's photographs, The Importance of Elsewhere, it cannot be coincidental that as he ran out of things to say in verse, so he became less interested in the photographic image. No more words, no more images. Finally, as so many of the speakers in his poems have done, the poet lets himself relax into the grip of light. Thank you.